Hello and welcome to the Instagram Live. Today, I'm just going to bring in Jenna. Um, let's see. And whilst we're waiting for Jenna, just to let you know that today we are talking about the immune system.
Mhm.
Oh, hi, Jenna.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Sun's just poked its head out. It's been torrential rain here all
Oh
morning.
no, no. It's
Love
definitely
it.
sunny up here. Yeah, sunny in Manchester for once as well.
Oh, lovely.
So today, everyone, we have Dr. Jenna Macciochi with us. She is an expert in all things immune system. And we're going to have a really good chat about all the things that we can be doing to support our immune system at the moment. Obviously, it is immune season. Everybody's looking to do what they can to avoid those sniffles and those colds, and also obviously very topical, avoiding COVID as well and things like that. So, Jenna, do you want to just maybe take a moment to explain what it is you do with the immune system? Because I know it's not always straightforward and clear, and
Mhm.
also how you got into what you're doing.
Yeah, gosh, I guess I kind of fell into immunology quite serendipitously without lack of proper career guidance. But it was the thing that I found most interesting when I was a student and in the medical school at Glasgow University, and had some just amazing immunology tutors, and I was kind of just hooked from then on. But I think in my 20s, I really struggled to stay well, and I thought I'm working on this system that is meant to keep us well, but yet I'm feeling really run down and yeah, not managing to put the science into action. So I think that's where I became really fascinated with how we could harness the science and make it practical and applicable to our daily life. And then I really understand how hard it can actually be. And I think that's you know something I would want to relay to everyone watching is that we have to be really compassionate with ourselves, because it's really hard to be healthy in the world that we live in. It's not designed, we have jobs that keep us sedentary. We have food marketing and a food environment that, um, encourages us to eat that in a way that's perhaps not the best for our body. And then, we live in really built up areas with lots of people where germs can spread easily. So it is really hard to be well in the modern world, but there are things that we can do.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of what you talk about on your Instagram and in your books is about those things that we can do to combat some of those things that we're doing that may be a bit harmful to our immune
Mhm.
system. But what I really like is how you talk about balancing the immune system. So rather than boosting the immune system. So lots of people tuning in and lots of people ringing into Nutri Advanced will be asking what they can do to boost their immune system at this time of year. So, how do you define that difference between the two?
Yeah, I think that's probably a really good place to start. So the immune system is a really complicated system with lots of different components, and I won't go into all the details. I don't think it's necessary for people to know that, but it is everywhere in your body, and we even include things like the skin and the lining of your airways, those body barriers, as part of your immune system. So you've got this really complicated system that's everywhere, and we feel like we want to somehow supercharge it so that we're invincible to germs. And so this word boosting has kind of crept in. And when the general public are saying it, I really understand what they mean. They're very much trying to seek advice on how to avoid getting sick or what they can do when they do get sick. But then I think we need to have a bit of an appreciation for what the immune system does, and that when you switch it on or boost it, it's releasing inflammation, and this is supposed to make the environment of your body really uncomfortable for that germ. But that also makes you feel pretty lousy. So we all know what it feels like to get a cold or flu. We might have a bit of a temperature and we feel a bit tired, and we get all these different kind of symptoms that make us feel really unwell and quite poorly. And that's actually the action of your immune system. So it's making the germs feel uncomfortable, but as a collateral damage, making you feel uncomfortable. And so you have this other arm of the immune system that most people maybe haven't heard of or doesn't get appreciated enough, which is the regulatory arm, which comes in and switches off that inflammation once it's done its job to remove the viruses or whatever's invading you, and helps heal and repair and helps you recover. And we need that balance, because if we just have the on switch, it could leave us damaging our own delicate tissues. So we need the off switch as well. And I'm sure that COVID's given us a lot of examples of the immune system in action, but people getting hospitalized because their immune system's kind of overshooting. That off switch hasn't come into play when it was needed, and they've ended up needing respiratory support because actually the damage from their immune system fighting the virus was so much that it compromised their ability to breathe.
Yeah, and so what can people do in that situation to support both that there's some things that I know that this weekend I was away and I was like maybe not getting enough sleep
Yeah.
and eating differently to my usual diet.
Yeah.
So, is there anything like that that people can do to help both that resilience to germs and things like that, or to kind of like maintain that balance in their immune system?
Yeah, I think that, these are the sort of practical tools that people are curious about as we go into winter, and we also go into that sort of Christmas period, which can, compromise our health in a lot of different ways. But I think the first thing is to note that your immune system's developed across your lifespan. So there'll be things that happened, as a child, or antibiotics you were given, or changes to your microbiome that are beyond your control. So there are some things that we cannot control. Our genetics and what we inherited from our parents in the genes of the immune system, we can't change that. So there's certain things that we can't fix, but there's lots of things we can do. We know a lot of how the immune system functions is dependent on all these different inputs that we give it from our environment, from our lifestyle, and from our diet. And I think it's really important to stress that we don't just focus on a nutrient or a supplement. And I think there's a temptation to do that because it's a bit easier than also considering the other areas of our lifestyle. And as you said, like sleep is a big one. I know at the moment, it's getting to that Christmas workload build up, and the first thing to go is sleep, because my mind starts to be like, oh, I've got so much to do this week, and that I'm also thinking Christmas shopping for the kids, and then I've got a work party and I'll be in bed late, and if I have a glass of wine, my sleep's going to be shot, and then I'll not have time to catch up. So it's a tricky time to protect your sleep, but it really is the bedrock of your immune health. Your immune system needs those hours in bed with quality sleep to switch gear, to do the repair, to do all the bits to get it recalibrated for the morning when you go out on the train, the commute, the busy journey, the kids in school, where there are lots of germs. And we know that a night of bad sleep, when you go out into the world, it can make you more vulnerable to catch a cold if you're exposed to one of those seasonal viruses. So sleep is really important, and getting moving. So we do tend to have more of these infections in winter. Some of that is because the viruses like the cooler climates, and some of that is because we tend to huddle indoors where lots of people are, and we don't get out in the fresh air, and we perhaps are more sedentary than normal, and we let our vitamin D levels drop because we're not getting that sunshine, and we forget to take our supplements. So movement's really important. I really focus on movement, because I think if you sit all day at a desk and then go and do an hour in the gym, it doesn't undo all the sitting. You have to just break up the sitting throughout the day. And also getting outdoors, if you can make a walk at lunchtime, or anything where you're combining a bit of nature and fresh air with a bit of movement, I think is really important. And then, what you're putting on your plate. And I always say food first, but not food only. So food first, because food is, where we should be aiming to get our nutrients from, but not food only, because there's some situations where supplements can supplement our diet in various ways, and especially if people are unable to eat a diverse and varied diet for a health reason, or another lifestyle choice. And I also think it's really good to have your little medicine box of things for if you do fall ill. So for me, I like to have things like zinc and vitamin C, because I know my immune system needs more of those when I'm under the weather. So I want to consume more. And then, topping up your sort of what you're getting from your diet, or if you don't feel like eating, if you're unwell, it can be useful then to get things from supplements. Vitamin D is the big one, definitely. I think about 20% of people in the UK manage to maintain a healthy vitamin D level over winter, despite all the Public Health England and NHS advice. And so I think that is one that we should be taking consistently. A daily thing, vitamin D, I think, is my biggest sort of take home for people if they're going to take any supplement. I really like beta glucans and things from mushrooms. Quite interested in the whole mushroom arena, and these beta glucans have got quite potent effects on the immune system, and that's something you can take consistently. And omega-3, I think, unless you're eating a lot of oily fish, it's quite a safe one to supplement with, and really, really important for the immune system. So those are kind of my everyday ones, and then I keep my sort of when I fall ill ones, which should support my immune system then.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone who does want to talk more about those options, then you can book a call with a nutrition advisor to go through anything that you wanted to take. But like Jenna said, I think there's so much that you can do that is outside of just that taking something. I mean, that's a good insurance, but there's many things out there that can harm our immune systems at this time of year, particularly.
Yeah.
So Dr. Jenna, you mentioned some of those, the genetics, sometimes the microbiome.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Lack of sleep, we've got our diets, if we're not eating enough nutrients, all of those things are going to be having that huge impact on our diets. We did actually, when we talk about this balancing, we had a question come in of somebody, and if anyone does have any questions, there is an option for questions at the bottom. We had one come in that's can balancing your immune system then help to bring an irregular cycle back into harmony? And I've got a feeling that that if the immune system impacts so many of those different functional medicine areas that
Yeah.
is this one that could also you could see affected?
The menstrual cycle they're referring to. Yeah, I think I probably want to look at the evidence quite thoroughly, because I'm always kind of anchoring what I say to what's been studied. But we know that the immune system is really involved in that monthly cycle. This is something I touched on in my first book, and how there's changes in place across that monthly cycle, and also the second half of the cycle can be more inflammatory, and that's some of the reasons we might feel a certain way during that time. And so there certainly seems to be a two-way interaction between the hormonal axis and the immune axis. So I think that it's definitely, nothing is working in isolation. So if your immune system is working well, it's going to have a knock-on effect on other areas of your body. We see that with metabolism, and I can imagine that would also be the case with the reproductive system as well. I think what
Yeah.
you said actually on the gut was really important, because it's something that I find that people don't consider as important for their immune system. They automatically default to the kind of vitamins and minerals like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, which are all, of course, important, but so much of your immune system's along the digestive tract, and that's where a lot of this immune regulation has its origins. So when you're feeding the gut microbes and they're breaking down that fiber, they're producing their sort of metabolites, their byproducts that are then absorbed not only in the gut, but they're going to be transferred around the body. And those are very immune modulating, and those are very important for that regulatory arm. So we know that things like dietary fiber, maybe there's some occasions where a probiotic or a prebiotic might be useful, to really protect the gut. That's not only for winter, but perhaps also if you suffer from an inflammatory condition like an autoimmune disease or an allergy. And we do have studies showing that there are certain prebiotics that you can take in the diet are associated with reduced incidence and duration of colds and flus in winter. So really working on that gut health, I think, is a really good place to consider in that kind of overall picture of your immune system.
Absolutely, and I think that's definitely something that if somebody's finding that they're having repeat infections at this time of year and they're really struggling with their health at this time of year, then it could be something that they're looking back then to the whole year and
Mhm.
looking at that balance and which systems need support and what could they be doing then to
Mhm.
to help things like the microbiome.
Mhm. And I think what you said of if people are getting infections really frequently, there could be many things going on. I think the first thing is not to panic because it is quite normal for adults to get a couple of minor viruses per year. But ask yourself, like, what does your day look like? Do you work in a school? Do you work with lots of kids? And sadly, the personal hygiene is often a work in progress for kids. So you might be getting sneezed on by 30 different children in an hour. So you have to think about your exposures to germs. If you are living in a house in the woods and you don't see a single soul for a month, your chances of catching a cold will be quite slim because you need other humans to act as that vector for the viruses to spread between. So, if you're in London and you're commuting, that exposure piece might be quite high compared to someone else. But what we are looking for is signs that your immune system might not be quite right. And that would be things like you struggle to shake off a cold, you get it maybe more frequently than you would expect given the sort of exposure levels, or you get kind of persistent symptoms or unusual symptoms or unusual infections that you should normally be able to fight off. And that's when it's kind of good to have that conversation with your doctor, and maybe there needs to be further investigations or start to kind of look at your lifestyle and look at the different areas, looking at the diet, thinking about movement levels, gut health, sleep, and then other things as we go into December. Alcohol, sadly, is not being found to be beneficial for your immune system, and sadly alcohol is also a sleep disruptor. And I know some people might feel like, well, if I have a drink I fall asleep much easier, but often that quality of sleep is not there because of the way that alcohol disrupts it. So then you wake up the next day not feeling quite so refreshed, and we know that with a night of poor sleep our blood sugar levels are much harder to regulate, and we often reach for the wrong foods and overconsume the wrong foods, and you get into kind of that bad cycle. So the blood sugar piece is really important too. And Christmas party foods, it is a time to celebrate and be with family and friends and eat something that's a little bit different to normal. But I think so many people are maybe on a concerned about that they might end up like you almost release the floodgates and you just go wild, and then you again go to bed feeling really kind of fuller than normal or a bit uncomfortable. And so it's kind of trying to find that moderate piece with the threads
Yeah.
through it all is like the moderation, because it is important to social interaction is really important for our immune system, we know that. And so that's the nice thing about Christmas. And then the other side of that is loneliness, which we know can be if you're lonely, we look through the evolutionary lens, it means that you're less likely to be in contact with people. So you're less likely to need your antiviral defenses because germs spread where people are. So if you're not near people, then you're not likely to catch a virus. But that doesn't work in the modern world because you can feel very lonely even if you're surrounded by people. And so then that can affect how well we respond to viruses. So I think that's something to consider. And it's quite hard, I think, at Christmas time because everybody has a different experience. On the surface, it might look on the TV like everyone's having these wonderful family dinners, but there can be a lot of loneliness at that time. And so I think checking in on people who might not have someone to be with, and that's really going to be important for immune health as well.
Absolutely, and I think there's two things that that you can take from what you were saying there. That perhaps those who are going and celebrating with family and maybe eating foods or having a glass of alcohol if they're not used to that, if they were concerned, I mean, I think stress comes into this
Oh
immensely.
yeah.
So allowing time to recover, allowing yourself some kindnesses, but also, building in time to reflect and bounce back. But the same for those who are lonely, it could be that, again, just being kind to yourself and allowing some
Yeah.
time to maybe take some reflection and some meditation, or to reduce those stresses could help.
Yeah, the stress is a really big piece, and I mean it's something I personally struggle with, because just the balance of work and family life with kids and putting it all together. I've certainly, you know, had to admit that I'm a person who gets a little bit more stressed than I should about things. And you know, when you get into that build up to Christmas, there are going to be those stresses, whether it's finishing up a work deadline or making sure you get the Christmas shopping done for the kids, or family dramas about who goes to which family member's house for Christmas. But I think it just has to be known that is an immune disrupting factor. We know quite well that, you know, when you're stressed, it's supposed to motivate you to safety, and that's why we have a stress response. But in that moment, it's going to triage all the energy away from your immune system so that you can go, you know, and run to safety. But sadly, in the modern world, when you're feeling stressed every day because you're waking up with, you know, the same work emails that stress you out, then that's, you know, something that gets quite pervasive. And there's a thing called leisure sickness, where you eventually take time off work, you know, your annual leave at Christmas, but because of the build up and the stress, you get really unwell because you're so run down. So as soon as you sort of go on holiday, then you end up with you know, picking up whatever germs are going, because you've got yourself run down and ruin your time off. So the stress is really an important one, and I think there's no easy solution for that, because the causes will be quite diverse for different people. But I think that self-compassion piece is really important. I say that a lot because it's something that I had to learn, because nobody taught me that in childhood. I think that would have been quite useful. But there are studies showing that practicing self-compassion, it not only helps you towards developing healthy habits and goal setting. So maybe in the new year, you want to plan some health related goals. You know, if we kind of beat ourselves up every time we fail to achieve them, it actually increases our chances of not succeeding. If we're kind to ourselves, then it increases our chances of being successful with those goals. And the other thing is, there's studies looking at actual markers of your immune system in the blood when people are taught to be more self-compassionate, and it can improve how your immune system works. So I think as we go into a really busy time, it's probably busy work-wise, personal life, social life, and on top of that, the more germs that frequent at this time of year, I think that should be our kind of superpower that we take with us, and just whatever scenarios pop up, just keep being kind to yourself.
Absolutely. And so we've just got a few minutes left. So I wondered if you wanted to sort of give those practical tools. You know, is there you know, when clients come to see you, what would you recommend for you know, to go away with? They might be in the throes of an immune crisis, and what would your top tips to them be?
I think I would definitely get people to do a bit of a sort of analysis of their overall lifestyle. So they might come saying, "Oh, what supplements can I take?" And I might be like, "Well, let's look and see first how those foundations are." So habitual diet, you know, the movement piece, the gut microbiome, the sleep and stress, and kind of do a sort of assessment across all these. And people can do this at home, you know, just a bit of paper and start, you know, everybody has their Achilles heel, and kind of score yourself in each area. And this is sort of what I go into in the second book, is sort of how to create your own personalized plan, because there's so much generic advice and it's quite hard to personalize that. And then I might consider their age and life stage, if they're pregnant or elderly or teenager, and then see if there may be gaps in the diet and why that might be. You know, people might have made a specific lifestyle choice, or maybe avoiding foods due to gut issues. So there's a need to maybe work on the gut, but then there's also a need to maybe fill in those gaps with appropriate supplements. Stress, and thinking of things like magnesium, B vitamins, ashwagandha, these kind of things. I think omega-3s, probably for nearly all of us, are a really good one. Is helping resolve inflammation, and we have a really good product for the
Yes.
pro-resolving mediators, which is not easy to find. Not many places do that. And then I would make sure they have their little medicine cabinet full of things when they do fall sick. the other one, sorry, vitamin D, I should say, with K2, which we should be taking every day from October to April. Yeah, and when you do fall sick, something with all the key immune supporting nutrients that we know your immune system's using more of, and vitamin C, selenium, zinc, that's a really important combination. The beta glucans from mushrooms. I like combining vitamin C as a sort of time release with the citrus bioflavonoids, or eating lots of citrus foods, because they sort of support the absorption and the function. So I think that's really important too. And you know, the self-compassion piece, finding, you know, packing out your mental health toolbox with tools for you, you know, social well-being tools, emotional well-being tools, leaning into things like meditation or breath work if that's available to you. I think for some people you may need to get some coaching and stuff to start those practices. I think that's really important to consider. And if you do fall sick, just know that it's quite normal, because we can't completely avoid germs. But if we want to recover in a quick and timely fashion, I think we need to have a bit of a re-education of our expectations. So, you know, taking supplements is not going to give you the same effect as walking into your pharmacy and taking an over-the-counter medication that's going to completely reduce your symptoms for the duration of that medication. But these medications are also suppressing your immune function, and they often have rebound symptoms, and they can make the whole illness a little bit longer. And so I think, because if we take a supplement, we might not feel a step function change in our symptoms, but it might reduce the duration and severity of the illness. It's not going to feel like what an over-the-counter pharmaceutical medication feels like. And I think that's okay. We're looking after ourselves in different ways, but you also need to rest. You also need to give your immune system that energy, free up that energy to go and fight the infection. And that's why we feel tired when we're sick, because your immune system is acting on your brain to change your behavior and say, no, you're going to stay and relax, and you're going to feel tired, so that you don't go out into the wide world and do your normal job, because nobody wants your germs, and it'll probably just delay you getting well in the first place. I think that's something we all struggle with. I certainly struggle with, because, you know, you've got work commitments, you've got childcare commitments, and so it can be really hard to say, no, I'm going to take one day off now rather than a few days off later, when I've just let this thing really get a grip of me. So I think that's something that we all need to kind of practice with each other within our organizations, and sort of cultivate a culture where we do allow people to recover properly before they come back to work.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that's definitely something that we would recommend as well. So at Nutri Advanced, obviously people do the same. They want that kind of like, what have you got? What pill can we take?
Yeah.
But our advisors will go through the whole background of like, well, perhaps what might be limiting your recovery, or what might be, you know, they'll ask those questions about what's happening with your microbiome, and what the more in-depth look at it is. And I really like that idea of taking that advice individually as well. So you know, what's applying to somebody else might not be applying to you, so don't beat yourself up that you're not matching what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you know, and really have a look at what's going to work for you. So yes, please do check out Jenna's Instagram page. She's got lots of great tips on there, also the books. And if you wanted to talk to somebody a bit more about whether a vitamin D or a vitamin C, or what, you know, any of the advice that Dr. Macciochi has given today, if you want to have a chat with the team about that, then please do book yourself in for a nutrition advisor slot, and they can go into that in a bit more detail for you. So I just want to say a big thank you for taking some time out today to chat to us. I think it's very appropriate at this time of year for us all to just be a little bit kinder to ourselves, and hopefully to our immune systems too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone who joined.
All right. Bye.